Faith and inspiration are treasures to behold. Through words and wisdom, our spirits grow. Join us on this journey on the exchange show. Hope in the whispers, guidance in the prose, faith in the stories where the heart knows. A tapestry of voices woven with care. In every episode it is a blessing to share. Welcome to the exchange where stories unfold. Faith and inspiration are treasures to behold.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Exchange Show, where stories unfold. Thank you for joining us today in 2026. Hallelujah. We've made it over to 2026. I am your host, Berthanna Oxendine. I thank God we are here together today on the Exchange Show. Listen, go ahead and like and share. Invite someone to watch with you here on YouTube. All the links you would need to become a part of our network and community, they'll be listed in the description of the video. So here at the Exchange Show, I had the awesome privilege of talking to some of God's gifted authors and then hearing their story. And they share a message of hope, faith, love, and guidance in different situations. To let you know some things about me, as I said, I am your host, Berthanna Oxendine. I am a certified life coach. I'm an encourager, a pastor, a mother, and a two-time international best-selling co-author. In our first book was Divine Shift, From Religion to Relationship. And then our second book was The Exchange, My Will for His Power. I'd like to thank our executive producer, Apostle Juanita Corey Jackson, for giving me the opportunity to be the host of the Exchange Show. I was really blessed last year, 2025, and as I look back over the Exchange Show and I think about all the conversations I had with all the authors and getting to promote their book, I learned a lot from their experiences. My eyes were open to some things that God had led them to do. And one thing I know, where He leads, He goes with you. And how He changed them through a lot of their experiences that they had. God definitely has a plan and a purpose for each one of us. And what He has for you, He will give you what you need to accomplish it. I thank God for every author that God allowed to be a special guest on the Exchange Show and let us showcase their book. So to you, I say thank you. And also to our audience, to each one of you that viewed the Exchange Show and made a purchase or maybe two. I have to say the authors and the books have brought some life changes in my life. It caused me to do some inventory in my life. It brought hope to me to continue to hold on and don't give up. I believe God brings what you need when you need it. I encourage you to go through our playlist on YouTube and see which book God has for you. If you happen to miss our regular shows through 2025, you can always go back on YouTube on our Ken channel and hear that episode. I wanted just to choose one book today and mention it, but it was too hard to choose which one I would say would be my favorite. All of them were so great. I'm just going to go through and mention a few that we had in 2025. I remember we had Miss Renee Moulton, and her book was Knee Pain Recipe. Yep, Knee Pain Recipe. And I encouraged that book because she did have a recipe that would help eliminate, knee pain. So if you're having knee pain and you want to to get some information on how eliminating that knee pain, check her book out, Knee Pain Recipe. And she mentioned how you had to follow the recipe exactly like she had it to get the results that she's talking about that you would get. And also then we had a Pastor Williams. His book was Finding Joy on Death Row. Finding Joy on Death Row. You would have to read that book to see what all he was saying in there, that even on death row, how God worked through him to allow others to still have some joy. And then also we had a Patricia Marston, The Pain and Agony of Grief. And that pain is dealing with the passing of her 4-year-old son. But even though he passed at 4 years old, God had used him to bring some joy to others. And then we had another author, Amaya Agat. And I'm sorry, I hope I'm not messing her name up too bad. But her title of her book was A Daughter's Lost, A Father's Love. Sometimes we can have death in the family, and especially, say you're a daddy's girl and it's your father that passed away. Sometimes you may want to withdraw. You may want to give up. Through her book, she encouraged you and she gives you how God worked through her life, how God allowed her to reach out for help and be able to begin again and do what she knew her father would want her to do. And then we had Alan Black, and the title of his book was Just a Closer Walk. And in that book, he begins to take you through a process. And he says to get a closer walk with the Lord, it's a process you have to go through. I encourage you to get the book and see the process that God took him through to help him to start getting closer to the Lord. And then we have Dr. Elder Lexi Johnson. Wow. Stop begging God for money. Stop begging God for money. And she said, and her book it's breaking free from financial bondage. Now, who doesn't want to be set free from financially being in bondage? And then we have Davida All Day. Her title of her book was Fully Persuaded. And hers is a devotional, 40-day devotional. And she goes through the book of Romans, the 4th chapter, through Romans, the 8th chapter. And like I said, it's a 40-day devotional, and it's good. Then Linda Sutton. Now, Linda Sutton, the title of her book is It Takes Two to Tangle. Now, I've heard of people going through marriage counseling when they're having some problems, going through marriage counseling. That's like sitting in an office talking to somebody. But she introduces us in her book about using the dance, the tango, using the dance to create a passionate partnership. And then we have my friend, Gail Miller. She's an author, but I didn't realize that. We graduated from high school together, and now we meet again, and she's an author. The title of her book is Revelation of God's Love, Your Treasure Map to His Heart. How to Love Yourself Through the Lens of God. And then we had another author, Mr. Joe. I'll call him Mr. Joe. His book was titled Pale Pink Rose. And he cycled through 50 states to journey. His was to a journey of faith, pedals, and American byways. I don't know if I could ride a bike that much to go through 50 states, but that was a dream he had. And so perhaps there's somebody out there that has the same dream. Get his book, and he can tell you what he went through, his do's and his don'ts, and what he learned, and even with his relationship with Christ on his journey. Then another one we had was, I think, Sue Burns. Sue Burns, the title of her book was Common Life. And it was the life of her great-great-grandmother. And perhaps, your grandmother has a story that somebody needs to hear about. And you may wonder, well, one thing in her book and made me that I can remember was she was talking about how she likes to knit and she likes quilting, and found out and to find out that her grandmother loved quilting. She was lived a common life, but her grandmother also loved the Lord, and she would make quilts and do different things like that. And also, Sue, she likes to do some of the same things. So it was a very good book. And then I had Carla J. Nolan, Lifting the Weight of Shame. Lifting the Weight of Shame with God's Love. And I remember one quote she had in her book. She said, lift your head and heal your heart. And it's a workbook. And all through it, it's a section where she has her scriptures, but it has an area for you to write and you to think about the shame that may be weighing you down, and through the love of Christ, how you can be lifted above that shame. And then we have another author. Her name was Sherry Miter, and her book was Discovering Your Calling. Discovering Your Calling. And she can guide you through what you may need to do to discover what your calling is. And she shared how one time she was in, I think it was Mary Kay, and she was all into it and even got the pink Cadillac, all of that. But then God began to move her to something more. And so I do believe that God can start you on one thing, and we just don't have one calling. And she can help you discover that calling. And then we had another author. Her name was Tammy Stacklehouse. And the title of her book was Take Back Your Life. And her book is like, say, if you know somebody that has an illness, the illness that she talks about in the book is fibromyalgia. And she was saying, just because you've been diagnosed with an illness or fibromyalgia, that you can still live. She said, take back your life. Don't let what you have been, diagnosed with, don't let it take over you. You still have a life. You still have a life. And so take your life back. It's a very encouraging book. Then Nicole Kelly, the title of her book is Losing a Friendship, Finding Myself. So she had to lose a friendship with someone very close to actually find herself, what God wanted her to do. And now one thing I think about, God says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all other things will be added unto us. But sometimes we love people. We love our friendships with our friends so much that we love them more than we do God. And we want to listen more to them than we're listening to what God is saying. And that should not be. So she said in her book, she had to losing a friendship to find herself. And then she was able to be what God wanted her to be. That's a good book. And then Carrie West, another one of the authors, she talked about life rewritten. And she was saying how different things happened in her life, her younger life. But she wrote it over. She wrote her story over again. She wrote her story over again. It didn't end with all the things that happened to her when she was growing up, because she made up her mind to rewrite that story, And so all of these books have been so good. And that's just a few of the ones that I gathered out of there. And one other thing that Carrie West said, she said, her book is just a guide, but the journey is yours. And she said, the way you started does not have to be the way you end. And that is so true. That is so true. Maybe you had a bad childhood growing up, but you don't have to stay stuck there. You can rewrite your story. And in her book, she's giving you ways and suggestions of things you can do, and 7 ways to keep in mind to keep in mind how you can begin again and rewrite your story. And one thing I learned too, as when I was reading it, is that as I get older, some of the things that may have happened to me when I was younger, I see them in a new light. So now I would rewrite those things different because I see them different. But her book has so many good points in there about that. So I'm learning more and more every day. When you give your life to Jesus Christ, it is what He wants. It should be what He wants. Because when you give your life to Him, you belong to Him. You're saying, not my will, Lord, but thy will be done. So it is whatever He wants. And I really realized the things that I had experienced in my life and learned from was not just for me, but to help somebody else. Sometimes you may think, I'm the only one that has experience. I'm the only one that have experienced this, but you're not. You may not be the only one. It's somebody else that have experienced some of the same things you have, but it's up to you, the outcome of those things. And then I think of another author we had. His name was Larry G. Dix. And his book title was Born or Made. Were you born or were you made? And he's a businessman and had a whole lot, and he learned a whole lot. But get his book, and then you would see, were you really born or were you made? The outcome of that would be surprising to you. And then another author that I'm thinking of, his Dr. Arthur L. Felber. And the title of his book was Effective: 7 Keys for Christian Leadership Success. 7 Keys for Christian Leadership Success. And in the book, it's a heart to help others become who they are meant to be. So he wants to help others through his book. When you read his book, it's a book to help others become who they are meant to be. And sometimes we don't know which steps to take or how to begin. But 7 keys to help lead you into a leadership success. And then also Reverend David Anderson, his book was Before God and These Witnesses. And it was a book that I know it'd be good for pastors because it helps them to know how to start a marriage ministry to help grow their church and how to reach out to the community and change the culture while you're in it. So it has sessions talks about premarital counseling, and he started out as a wedding chaplain, and he done wedding all kind of places, but his main concern was for them to know Jesus Christ. So he worked through that. He worked through being a chaplain, marrying people, and then next thing you know, his church was growing because he introduced them to Jesus Christ. And you'd be surprised how, if we just let God work through us like He wants to work through us, the changes that can be made in people's life. Then also another lady, let's see, I had on the show, it's Minister Janine Boston, and she was another one of the co-authors in our book, The Exchange. And in the book, her chapter was A Place of Darkness, but God. Have you ever been in a place of darkness and don't know what you're going to do? But God. And she shares her story, how it was God. And one thing I've learned in life, we can't do without God. We have to have Him. I have to have Him. 2026 is right here. He allowed us to come over to 2026. So He's still not finished with us. He's got a plan and He's got a purpose for our life. It says that in Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. So in this year, 2026, what is God's plan for you this year? Perhaps God is speaking to you to write a book, to share your story with somebody, to help somebody else know they can make it, to give them hope, to let them know how much they're loved, to encourage them not to give up, to keep holding on. And it ain't always going to be this way, or better days are coming, because they're sharing how better days have come for them. You may want to just share your experiences and how you now realize if it had not been for the Lord with you, you would never made it. His grace and his mercy would have, is what's brought you through. Maybe you need to share with somebody else how that has brought you through in a book form. And we'll be glad to promote that book for you, because we are a faith-based, we deal with faith-based books, non-fiction fiction authors. And if you'd like us to help you let others know about your book, the Exchange Show would love to hear from you. We would love to hear from you. Again, if you would like to showcase us, to promote your book, showcase your book on the Exchange Show, as I said, we're a faith-based show. Because reason I say that, because some people say, well, why do you just want faith-based books? I said, because if we're talking about the Lord Jesus Christ, I can't promote something that I don't agree with. But whatever God says for me to do, if he says pick that book, have that author on, I'll be glad to have that author on. So our book was Divine Shift, From Religion to Relationship. And our second book was The Exchange, From My Will for His Power. And that's all I want to do, is to do it his way. To do it his way. I lay down my will to take on his power. I release what I have in my hands to take what he has for me. And you never know how you can bless somebody and help somebody else by sharing what he's given you. So if you would like to be on our show this year, 2026, all you have to do is email me at ELDER, that's Elder BCSO 54 at gmail.com. And we need a PDF version of your book, a picture of your book, and a headshot of you. And we also need the link that you want us to show people to purchase your book. We'll be glad to showcase your book and let others know, hey, let me share with y'all what God has allowed me to write. And so maybe you haven't written that book yet. Maybe God is leading you to write that book. We do have someone we can introduce you to, Dr. Elder Joan Randall at Victorious U Press. We can connect you with her, and she could tell you all the information you need as far as writing the book if you haven't already written it. But if you have already written your book and you want us to showcase your book on the Exchange Show, all you have to do is send an email to ELDER, Elder, BCSO 54 at gmail.com. So let me say that again. Getting tongue-tied. Email us at ELDER, BCSO54 at gmail.com. And we need a PDF version of your book, a picture of your book, and a headshot of you. And also, we will need the link you want to show people to purchase your book. And again, I thank you. I thank you for all of those that have been our audience in 2025, and all the authors that shared their stories with us and help us and let us allowed us to promote their book in 2025. I thank you. And I'm looking forward to all the ones that plan to join us in 2026. We have a line of other authors that are lined up, and we're always open for more as well. We would love to get you on our calendar. So it's about time to wrap up for today on the Exchange Show. So, so bless somebody and help somebody by sharing your book story right here on the Exchange Show. Until next time, God's abundance rest on you as you release and follow Him. God bless you.
In a world that's searching for truth and light, we gather stories to share inside. Authors with wisdom, their voices ring in the Exchange Show.